Neysun Mahboubi joins me now from Philadelphia. He's a research scholar with the Center for the Study of Contemporary China at the University of Pennsylvania. Neysun, a lot to break down, but overall, very quickly, just the big picture impression you have of the plenum in the past few days. What would you say was the key takeaway?
Sure, Elaine. So, of course, we have the communique so far, and we're waiting for the resolution, which will be a more extensive document. But based on what we've seen so far, based on the plenum itself and the communique, to me, the main points are first, of course, that Xi Jinping's position at the center of the party and of the Chinese state has been even further bolstered from the very high position it was before. Of course, this puts him in the same league as Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping in terms of having a historical resolution of this nature, leading into a new party Congress, where by all signs he is likely to stay on as General Secretary and as President into a third term at the very least. So these are all very significant. Beyond that, parsing the language of the communique, of course, waiting to see what more will be in the resolution. The main thing that strikes me is that there's not a lot in there about policy per se. Now, there may be more in the resolution, but in the communique, it's more about, I think, Xi Jinping's position, about the history of the party. But for those of us who are wondering how China will handle all these great policy challenges before it, there's not a lot in there to give us specific guidance yet.
So how is this all being interpreted inside of China? And then what does this all mean outside of China?
That's a great way of analyzing the question. I think within China, this clearly is sending a message to the bureaucracy. It's clearly setting things up for the next party Congress, the 20th Party Congress, which we now know will be in the second half of next year. But the other part of this, the external signal, is something I'd like to say a few words about, because for that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the policy element. Something that's caught the attention of a lot of people abroad are the moves that the Xi Jinping administration has taken in recent months under the rubric of common prosperity. I think a lot of people are wondering what the direction of that will be, what it will imply for the future of reform and opening. And there's not a lot in this communique on those topics. And at least for now, it seems as if that may be sending a signal that there is not going to be a fundamental rethinking of the nature of reform and opening going into the next term of Xi Jinping's administration.
I want to get your thoughts on a couple of principles, putting the people first and then also staying independent. What does that say to you?
Some of those specifics, I want to be careful not to go too far beyond my skis, but putting the people first, of course, connects to the themes of this common prosperity campaign that I was mentioning earlier. There's clearly an element of what Xi Jinping's administration has put enormous emphasis on, which is being receptive to critiques of ordinary people, to the corruption that had existed at different points in the past, and thinking about the economic situation of the entire country and not just the large GDP number. So that theme is in there, and it's clearly a populist theme that we can see will continue to develop. But again, it's not clear to me that it will be as fundamental of a rethinking as some people thought might be happening, or maybe even feared might be happening.
And not to get too ahead of ourselves, but we mentioned the next National Party Congress taking place next year, the 20th National Party Congress. What does that mean? And how should we read all of this as this blueprint looking forward for China's future?
I think there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. I think the part of it that interests me a lot as a foreign scholar, in the past, if we were heading into this next party Congress, a lot of the speculation would be about who the new leadership team would be, who would be populating the new leadership. And that's not going to be the case, because we're going to most likely have a third term for Xi Jinping's administration. Many of us are just wondering, what is the future of succession then in that case? There will be at some point, who knows when, but at some point there will be a succession. And it will be interesting to see whether the types of things we used to see at these transitional moments, who gets elevated, who gets to sit on what committee, et cetera. Will we see things like that that will give us some signals or not? That's what I'll be particularly interested in the second half of 2022 when we move into that 20th Party Congress.
Neysun Mahboubi, always great to get your take. Thank you so much for joining us from Philadelphia.
Thank you.
The COP26